Ever wish you had like a relationship crystal ball?
Yeah.
You know, one of those things where you could just like see the future and someone would just tell you, run,
Huh.
or like go for it at just the right time.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. Well, today's deep dive is like the next best thing.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
We're diving into Choose Happiness,
Okay.
which is packed with relationship mentor Ann Johnson's like hard-won wisdom. And trust me, she does not sugarcoat it.
I love that. You know, one of the things I find so fascinating about her work is how much she emphasizes the value of mentorship in relationships.
Yes.
It's like having a guide in this crazy jungle of emotions, right?
Yeah.
Helping you to see your own worth and then find that lasting happiness, which is what we all want.
Yeah, and Ann's no stranger to those aha moments. I mean, she's been
Mhm.
invited to clients' weddings, graduations, even their kids' birthday parties.
Wow.
Imagine getting that text message, knowing your guidance led to that kind of joy.
That's amazing. It really speaks to the impact of her work. And speaking of impact, Anne doesn't shy away from the intense situations. Take her client, who was stuck in a 12-year entanglement with, you guessed it, a married man.
Oh my goodness. 12 years is a long time to invest in a mirage.
Exactly. And the way she describes this client's struggle, the emotional roller coaster, that eventual betrayal, it highlights why recognizing your own self-worth is so crucial to breaking free from those unhealthy attachments.
Sometimes that betrayal, it just hits you right between the eyes like it did for this client when she discovered the truth about this guy through pictures of him with another woman.
Oh, talk about a harsh wake-up call. Ouch.
Right. But, you know, Anne's point here is crystal clear, right? You deserve a love that's not hidden in the shadows. And this actually segues perfectly into another area where clarity is key, online dating.
Ooh, the digital dating jungle.
I know.
I bet Anne's got some stories about that. Oh, you have no idea. She is all about proceeding with caution, right? One of her top tips, do your homework. Before you even meet up with somebody, check their social media, see if their stories line up.
Okay, so good old-fashioned detective work is still relevant in digital age.
More than ever, it's about protecting yourself. And not just from heartbreak, but, you know, from potential scams, too. Like, Anne actually shares this wild story about a client who got played by this guy who pulled the classic, I forgot my wallet routine on the first date.
Oh, classic. I can already see the red flags waving.
Right. But here's the kicker. This guy later shows up at her house pretending to be, like, fixing her garage door, only to then ghost her shortly after.
Okay, that's next level shady. Like, what can someone even do to protect themselves in that situation?
Well, that's where Anne's 30-day rules come in. They're like the safety net for dating, encouraging people to take things slow and really observe someone's actions before just diving in head first.
Ooh, I like that. So it's like a built-in cooling off period to avoid getting swept off your feet by a charming con artist. Speaking of charming, let's talk about the players and the liars out there, because sadly, they are a dime a dozen in the dating world.
Oh, I know, and they are masters of disguise. But Anne, she gives us the inside scoop, highlighting those telltale signs to watch out for. Like, for example, does he compliment every single woman in the room? Or are his stories always just a little too good to be true?
You've got to trust your gut in those situations.
Always trust your gut. It's like your internal lie detector. And Anne has this fantastic anecdote about a client who totally outsmarted a lying date. So he kept asking her for, like, you know, nude photos, and she finally agreed, but she sent him fakes.
Yes. I love that she turned the tables on him. It's like that old saying, don't get mad, get even.
Right. But on a more serious note, Anne also digs into why some men are drawn to vulnerable women.
Okay?
And this is where things get really, really interesting.
I'm all ears. This is the kind of insight I need.
She suggests that for some men, it's not about wanting to be a protector, it's actually about control.
Oh, wow.
If someone's already a little bit lost, it's easier to manipulate them, mold them into exactly what they want.
Whoa. That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how self-awareness is like a superpower in the dating world.
Absolutely.
Like if you know your own worth, you're less likely to fall for that.
100%. And this actually ties directly into another connection that Anne makes in the book that I found so interesting. The link between promiscuity and self-worth.
That's a topic that often gets kind of brushed under the rug.
For sure. And Anne tackles it head on. She talks about this client who used sex as like a bargaining chip, basically trading intimacy for favors for attention.
Right.
And it's heartbreaking because at its core, it's really about seeking validation in the most damaging way.
I remember this part of the book. Wasn't Anne at the client's house for like a session and then two different repairmen showed up.
Yes.
Talk about a light bulb moment.
It's like, what is going on here? But it really paints this vivid picture of how this woman was trying to fill a void in her life. And it's a good reminder for all of us listening. Are we seeking a partner, or are we trying to fix something within ourselves?
It's so easy to fall into that trap, though, especially after heartbreak. Which brings us to another section that really resonated with me, and that's Anne's advice on divorce and moving on,
Yeah.
because that is tough.
What I appreciate about her approach is that she doesn't just offer those empty platitudes, like, oh, it'll get better.
Right.
She encourages people to prioritize self-love, to resist rushing into a new relationship, just to kind of dull the pain.
It's like she's saying, hey, you survived something tough. Now take this time to rediscover your strength, your own identity.
Yes, exactly. And then, that's when you attract a love that's genuine. It's not just a rebound to fill the space.
She shares a story, actually, about a client who was devastated after her divorce.
Yeah.
She felt like her world had ended. But with Anne's guidance, she rebuilt her life, and now she's thriving.
It's proof that you can find happiness on your own terms. And honestly, I think that makes you that much more magnetic to the right person.
Right.
And speaking of the right person, Anne also digs into those different types that we often encounter, in the dating world.
Oh, you mean like the classic mama's boy?
Oh, yes.
I think we've all encountered one of those at some point.
Totally. And Anne's advice here is spot on. She says it's not about, demanding a clean break from his mom.
Right.
It's about setting those healthy boundaries.
Okay.
Like, if he's constantly running every big decision by mommy for approval, red flag.
Right. It's about making sure he's choosing you, not just defaulting to mom's opinion.
Oh.
Now, on the flip side of that spectrum, we have the controlling type.
The worst.
And they can be so charming at first, right? Making you feel like their entire world revolves around you. But Anne points out that that's actually part of the manipulation. So how can someone tell the difference between genuine affection and someone who's trying to control them?
Anne says to watch out for, excessive jealousy, attempts to isolate you from your friends and family, and a constant need to kind of dictate your every move.
Right.
Like, if he throws a tantrum when you want to spend a night out with your girlfriends, that's not about love, okay?
Well,
that's about control.
And then there's the ever-so-busy dater, the one who's always claiming they're swamped, but somehow has time for everything except a real relationship.
Oh, Anne has zero patience for that. She reminds us that actions speak louder than words, right?
Right.
If someone is genuinely interested in you, they will move mountains to spend time with you.
Right.
Even if it's just for a quick coffee or a phone call before bed.
Okay, so we've covered some major relationship hurdles, but what about the aftermath of a breakup, right?
Yeah.
Anne talks about how to get over an ex, which honestly can feel impossible sometimes.
It can feel impossible. And she offers some really practical advice, like cutting off contact, which can be tough.
So tough.
But it's so necessary. And then focusing on self-care, really rediscovering what brings you joy that is independent of your ex.
It's like hitting the reset button, remembering who you are outside of a relationship.
Exactly. And Anne stresses that there's no set timeline for healing. It's a personal journey. But by prioritizing your own well-being, you then create that space for genuine love to enter your life when you're ready.
It's like you're learning to love yourself first, so that then you can actually see clearly and spot someone who loves you for you, not for, the convenience you offer or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Which, speaking of, reminds me, and also gets into, why some men choose certain women over others, and her insights on this they're really eye-opening.
Yeah, and I think what's important to remember here is that it's not always a competition, right? There's not something wrong with one person and something right with the other, and really reminds us that sometimes it just comes down to compatibility. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Two people can be great individually, but just not the right fit as a couple.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, what's wrong with me, when a relationship ends.
Oh, I know.
But sometimes it's honestly nobody's fault. It's just not the right match.
Exactly. And Anne also talks about how some men are really drawn to women who make them feel accepted, not constantly judged. And it's not about, lowering your standards.
Right.
It's about finding someone who appreciates you for who you already are.
So instead of trying to mold yourself into someone you think he wants, you're just like, this is me. Take it or leave it.
Exactly. Be your awesome, quirky self. And the right person will totally be drawn to that. And it actually ties back to what we were discussing earlier, that whole self-love thing, and really emphasizes that it's not selfish to want to be loved, But it is crucial to know that difference between wanting love and needing validation from a partner.
Yes. So are you seeking a partner to fill a void
Ooh, good question.
or to share this already fulfilling life that you've built?
Right, big difference.
Big, big difference. And sometimes that means being patient, right? Like not just settling for a relationship to avoid being alone.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And she tells this powerful story about a client who, like, fell head over heels for this guy, only to find out that he was married
Hello.
with kids.
That's awful.
Right. And what's crazy is she ignored, like, all the red flags, like he was always out of town or whatever. He never introduced her to his family.
Yeah. Right.
And she was so caught up in this fantasy that she completely missed the obvious.
It's scary how often that happens.
Right. Like love is blind, as they say.
Hmm.
But thankfully, we have Anne's wisdom to like help us see those red flags a little bit more clearly.
And speaking of seeing things clearly, what about those situations where a relationship, it becomes more like transactional than emotional? And, Anne talks about that too, right?
She does. She talks about a client who had been through 2 divorces, and yet she kept choosing partners based on like financial security rather than an actual emotional connection.
Right. It was like she'd prioritize stability over like genuine love.
Which, makes you think about what you truly value most in a relationship.
Yeah,
And if you're willing to compromise on those values.
for sure. 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. And, Anne also dives into a topic that can be so difficult to discuss, and that is narcissistic men in relationships.
Oof.
She does not hold back. She outlines like all those classic signs, a constant need for attention, that lack of empathy, always blaming others. It's tough.
So how can someone listening know if they might be in a relationship with a narcissist? Like, what should they look out for?
Anne says to really pay attention to how he makes you feel.
Phil.
Do you constantly feel drained, like you're walking on eggshells around this person? Are your needs always coming second to his?
Yeah.
Those are red flags.
It's about, like, recognizing those unhealthy patterns.
Yes.
And then ultimately having the courage to walk away from a situation that's no longer serving you.
Exactly. And honestly, that's what Anne's entire message is all about. It's about empowerment.
Yeah.
She wants women to understand their worth, to set those boundaries, and to never, ever settle for anything less than a love that is respectful, that is fulfilling, and honestly, joyful.
Yeah, that's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
To choose happiness in, like, all aspects of life, including love. And honestly, Anne's book really is like a roadmap to get there. It's packed with those aha moments and those practical tips that you can literally start using today. So what does this all mean for you? Are you ready to, like, ditch the dating games and choose a love that truly lights you up from the inside out? Remember, you deserve a love story that is as amazing as you are. Now go write your happy ending.